Hello, everybody. Welcome back to G5 Philippines. In today's episode, we have the unique and exciting pleasure of interviewing a friend of mine here in San Carlos, Marie Broche.
Brose.
I'm not going to worry too much about it.
That's okay.
Very interesting how she and I met, and I won't bore you with a long story here, but we were actually out just driving around randomly, looking at houses and neighborhoods, and there's an area of land that I'm interested in, but it's behind a particular subdivision. And we pulled up and got out of the car and was walking around, and Marie was sitting out on her veranda having a coffee or whatever. And I just said, "Hey, do you know?" And suddenly we discovered that we had some common interest. I'm going to let her talk about her, but I believe that she has spent time in the U.S. and things like that. So she has a real understanding of foreigners who live in the Philippines or expats and their interests and concerns with real estate, owning properties, health insurances, and those kinds of things, as well as I have young children, so education is a third item that I'm particularly interested in, especially higher education. So Marie and I have been trying to get together on this for easily a year, maybe longer, to do this because she, also would like to promote her business and things like that. So for me, it's information gathering. For her, it's, providing that information, but also offering her, expertise, and she'll provide her contact information to me, and I'll share that in the description of the video and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Before we get into any of the topics, if you don't mind, just give us a quick, introduction and tell us how you became so multi-skilled, with different sets of knowledge.
All right. Hi, Gail. I just want to say hello to your audience. And yes, to cut the long story short, we've met accidentally. We've met in a good way.
Yeah.
Right? Because
there's no accidents.
Yeah. And a matter of fact, I'm also a broker, or a real estate broker.
If I haven't misunderstood, you also sell health insurance?
Yes, I am.
For expats?
Yes,
Okay.
Basically we have health insurance, and we have also life insurance, and
So the other thing, can you talk a little bit about your education background? I think I understand that you've spent some time in the U.S. Is that
yes,
correct? Okay.
yes, I did.
Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, all right. So basically, I'm a bachelor's graduate. Okay, BS Biology, matter of fact. But then I did not proceed to the medical industry.
Okay.
So I took some educational units so that I could pursue teaching, science teacher. But then my heart always falls in the business side.
Yeah, it's about helping people. It's about putting a solution into their hands, affordable, but that meets their needs, blah, blah, blah. Helping people find the solution that they need to meet their needs. So yeah, I can see how that's, we're very much alike in that that regard. Talk a little bit about your time in the U.S.
All right. So the reason why we went to the U.S., they were looking for teachers. And we are teachers.
Right.
So they're looking for science teachers, special education, mathematics teachers. And my ex-husband and I were teachers. So we applied and we got hired for a working visa.
How long were you there?
In total, I'm almost there like 7 years something.
Oh, okay. Well, the reason why I wanted you to explain all that was so that, the guys watching this video could sort of relate. It adds credibility, if I know for me, she spent time in the U.S., so she's going to have a better chance of understanding me than another Filipino that, hasn't experienced that. So let's get right into real estate. Now, I've been here 6 years. Even before coming, I was fully aware of the fact that, as a foreigner, I'm not going to be able to personally own, land. I know that there's some gray areas with owning a house that sits on land, but who would want to buy a house on somebody else's land? That doesn't even make sense to me. And then, of course, you can purchase a condo as a foreigner, I will never, or at least until legislation or something happens, I won't be able to own property, and that's okay with me. I'm in a 11-year marriage with my wife, and I have no issues or concerns about buying property in her name, and that's the loophole. So based on that, any insights from you, if an American or a foreigner moves to the Philippines, he's married, he wants to buy land, what are his options in terms of financing? Just talk about that a little bit.
All right, sure. So what we have here is we have the so-called low-cost housing, and also we have those. It could be like the government could finance that through Pag-ibig. So what is Pag-ibig? Like, we are members to it. You need to be a members to it. Whether you are working in the government or you are working a private sector, or...
Is that available to foreigners? I thought that was only available to Filipinos.
Yeah, it is available to Filipinos, but just like you said, once you're married to a Filipina, you could purchase a house, but it's gonna be under her name, right? So if your wife is a member of Pag-ibig, let's say, all you need to do is just pay for the equity, and once you get the equity and you have all those requirements provided to them, then you could be approved. And it's gonna be like, if you're like, let's say you're 20 years old, and then the retiring age would be 65. So 65 minus 30 years old. So that's the years where you could pay off your house and lot. So basically, it's something. It's very affordable. The younger you are, the more
how much is
years
the
of
interest?
paying.
How much interest are you paying?
Well, it's not much. It's just gonna be like, for instance, the cost of the house and lot is like, let's say 1 million, 1.2 million. You know how much you're just gonna paying if you're if you're gonna pay that for 25 to 30 years, okay? You'll only be paying 5 to 6, 7,000 a month.
That is cheap.
That's very cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very affordable, and it's government. Unlike,
of course, my aspirations are more in the neighborhood of 5 million pesos.
yes, of course.
I'm expecting to spend, 1.5, which is about $30,000 on the land, because I don't want a teeny tiny lot. I want a nice spread, and then I expect to spend another $1.5 million on my solar and power setup, and then whatever's left, I'll build the house. So.
Well, actually, so we're just talking about the low-cost housing. And there's this one, like, the Class A housing, right? So you have options, because a lot of developers, you could have your finances through the bank and through the Pag-ibig. So whatever options you want, once you paid off the equity, then you'll be introduced to a Pag-ibig or to what you call to the bank.
Right.
So those are the options.
Well, okay, so that raises a question then. In the U.S., to qualify for a mortgage, you have to show your job and your work history and your income and your, credit scores and all that.
It's very
So here in the Philippines, what do you have to do to qualify? Because obviously I don't have a job in the Philippines. I do work, but it's outside of the Philippines. How would I qualify for 100,000 or a 5 million peso loan?
Yeah, that's the thing. What that makes the difference, right? In the US, you need to get a lot of credit score, right? In the Philippines, you base on the salary or income. Whatever income that is, as long as you have income. Like, you need to have, like, if you want to have like a 5 million housing or worth of house and lot, then you have some sort of category that your net income should be like 30,000, 50,000 every month. So basically, then you'll be qualified. So there is
that's very, very low.
Yes, it is. If you are a foreigner, it's very low, because like for instance, you can pay that off for just about a year or two, with the kind of money that you have, with the exchange rate that you have. So basically, you can just pay that off.
I'd rather stretch it out 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
then again, the question arises is what kind of interest. So on a 5 million peso loan, am I going to be paying 5 million in interest at the all?
No. Basically, there are also banks that you're just gonna pay like 5%, 7%, 10% each month. So in total, if it's a 5 million loan, then you'll be paying like they say 5% or 3.5%. So every month for that from the capital. So multiply that one. So that's gonna be your total interest rate for the entire.
I'll have to play with the numbers.
Or we could provide you that information later part, or something like that. I can provide you the computation.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So yeah, so that it's more understandable.
Yeah.
Rather than saying those,
that would be terrific. Well, those are really the main questions. Is we've already answered. Can a foreigner? Yes, if he's married to a Filipino. And then number 2, financing. I mean, obviously, if you trust your wife to purchase a place or whatever in her name, and you have the cash to do it, then that's pretty easy. Now, I do know, and we don't have to get too deep into these details, but I do know that there's some requirements to build a house. You're required to get your building permits. You're required to get and hire an architect. In other words, you can't just start pouring concrete. You have to go through some bureaucratic processes to get your building permits and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess it's the same in the US. That's probably not much different. Okay, so I feel like we've covered real estate fairly well. And guys, for each of these segments, drop your questions in the comments. I'm going to provide Marie's contact information. She'll be very happy to answer these questions. So we got that covered.